You have probably heard this advice before. Eat more protein, walk more, lift weights, and don't forget to sleep really well. But here's what no one tells you. These habits don't just change your calorie intake or help you build muscle. They send an important message to your nervous system that your body is safe and calm, and that matters more for fat loss than willpower or some new diet strategy ever will. In this video, I'm going to show you why these 7 habits finally start working when you stop treating fat loss like a discipline problem. After 40, the body changes. Hormones get messed up, we know that. But what almost no one talks about is that your nervous system, that changes too. And if your nervous system is stuck in a constant state of stress, underfueled, overstimulated, always pushing, fat loss becomes incredibly hard to sustain. And it's not because you're doing it wrong, it's because your body, when it doesn't feel safe, it doesn't know how to let go. So habit 1, prioritize protein. We've heard this before too. Get your protein in. Most women already know that protein protects muscle as we age, but that's not the most important reason I prioritize protein with women over 40. Protein is neurotransmitter support. It provides amino acids that your brain uses to make serotonin, which then supports the calm feeling, gives you emotional stability and satiety. It also supports dopamine, which helps with motivation, follow through, and drive. When protein is low, your brain interprets that as scarcity. And a brain in scarcity doesn't want balance. It wants fast dopamine. That's when you start to see constant snacking, or maybe sugar cravings, or possibly why can't I stop eating at night? Those type of feelings, or random binges, which lead to starting over on Monday. When women increase protein earlier in the day, those behaviors start to quiet down, not because of willpower, but because the nervous system then finally has building blocks to regulate itself. Aim for 1 gram per pound of goal body weight as a working estimate. Try to get at least half of that in before 2 p.m. to stabilize blood sugar and brain chemistry early. So for example, if you weigh 160 pounds and you want to lose 20 pounds to get to 140, then you're going to aim for 140 grams of protein total in your day and try to get half of that in before 2 p.m. Habit 2, track fiber. So a lot of women tell me either one thing or the other. I don't eat that much, or I can't stop overeating. But once they start tracking fiber, they realize they are severely undereating this very important thing. So fiber is very important because it slows blood sugar spikes, it reduces cortisol output, and it feeds gut bacteria that supports serotonin production. These things are extremely important. The body releases fat and builds muscle most easily when insulin isn't constantly high and cortisol isn't constantly signaling danger. So remember, most serotonin is made in the gut, not in the brain. When fiber increases, hunger starts to quiet down, not because you're trying harder, but because your body isn't riding a blood sugar roller coaster. Aim for 25 to 40 grams of fiber per day and try to get in 15 grams earlier in the day. I'm a Fiber One cereal eater and also an Ole Mission wrap, those low carb or keto wraps. I use those a lot because they have a lot of fiber, and then I'm able to get it in throughout my day. Habit 3, strength train for skill first. So I see this all the time, especially with all the language out there right now about lifting heavy, that women in menopause need to lift heavy. Women feel pressure to lift heavier weights, or they end up rushing through lifting lighter weights because they think intensity and sweatiness eventually equals progress. But the nervous system doesn't respond to chaos. It responds to predictability, control, and safety. Slowing down, focusing on form first. This improves proprioception, which is improving your body's internal sense of where your limbs and joints are in space, even without looking, allowing for better form, balance, and control during lifts, which prevents injury and boosts performance by refining muscle activation and coordination. This then sends clearer safety signals to the brain. This reduces threat perception, and that is why women should be focusing on skill first. Their bodies finally respond because they are not only recruiting more muscle fibers, which builds more muscle over time, but being injured is kind of scary and it kind of sucks. And being scared to work out doesn't help anybody feel safe. When women are excellent at form, then they feel stronger because they can then lift heavier, which then helps them feel more confident and more grounded. Strength train 3 to 4 times per week. Earn load or heavier weights through control, not just through brute force. Habit 4, prioritize sleep. I have never seen consistent fat loss in someone who sleeps terribly. In fact, my clients who struggle with sleep learn that this needs to be fixed first before they make an intentional effort at any fat loss attempt. Poor sleep raises cortisol, increases hunger hormones. It also reduces insulin sensitivity. And remember what I said about the fact that the body releases fat and builds muscle most when insulin is not constantly high and cortisol isn't constantly signaling danger. This is why sleep is so important. But more importantly, a tired nervous system interprets the world as more threatening. When sleep improves, appetite regulation also improves. We're not as noshy. So does motivation. Then we can get up and go to the gym. So does decision making. Then we can think about impulse, right? Impulse control. If sleep is a struggle, don't ignore it. This is not a discipline problem. And don't let your doctor tell you that your perimenopause symptoms, I hear this all the time, or your menopause symptoms aren't bad enough yet. Okay, sleep is a very important thing to be able to reproduce growth hormones. So everything we do, we get the rewards from it. I always wondered why I like this next habit so much, and I'll tell you why. Habit 5, daily walking, especially outdoors. So just listen to this one. I never knew this. It was amazing because I was like, okay, this is why I like this so much, especially outdoor walking and not just steps on a treadmill to gather steps adding up on your Oura ring. So this is what it is about outdoor walking. It provides natural light for circadian rhythm, very important for sleep, gives visual depth and horizon scanning. This helps to reduce amygdala activity, and it shifts the nervous system. This is so important, from the sympathetic side to the parasympathetic drive, which in turn has a positive effect on elevated cortisol levels and blood sugar. Treadmills work and they are okay, but outdoor walking gives the brain way more information that says, I'm safe. This is where I should be. And safety is what allows fat loss to happen. So yes, still aim for those 10,000 steps a day. I take my dogs for a walk, like at least 2 to 3 times a day. Prioritize outside walks when possible. And understand that the movement, okay, walking right and left when you're walking, especially when you're swinging your arms, is a form of bilateral stimulation that is very calming for the nervous system, and fat loss happens when we're calm. This next one, you most likely hate it, but I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't. Habit 6, track calories, but with curiosity, not restriction or discipline. Okay, for many women, calorie tracking is so threatening. And that makes sense if it's been used as punishment or some type of control, or with a sense of urgency or desperation to get the weight off. But when used differently, tracking becomes data, not self-judgment. Tracking with the attitude of curiosity is a whole different approach. This then activates the prefrontal cortex, which helps your brain to sense calm instead of trying to force a calm state. It reduces shame, and it also interrupts behavior. So like, try it, like, oh, I notice I want that cookie. I wonder why. Wonder. Curiosity also reduces stress, which has a positive effect on cortisol levels. So when women track to observe patterns, they naturally make calmer decisions. They don't eat less because they're restricting. They eat differently because they're responding versus reacting. This is a very different feel. So when we track to learn and develop awareness, things start to change. When we track from curiosity, especially, looking at things like when we get on the scale, when we try to weigh ourselves, if we get on the scale and we feel threatened immediately, but if we start looking at things from a curious approach, it's a very different response in our system versus, I have to get my protein in. Okay, so I can do a whole video on how do we approach tracking from curiosity, but it becomes very different because then we can create this like space between us and the whole concept of tracking. And I've noticed with my clients over time, when they start to track from curiosity, it's not so pressuring, because a lot of times that pressure, that then can force us to feel like I just need to have whatever I want to have. Okay, so using a concept of curiosity, I wonder what this is going to do if I put this in here. How many times do people not track certain foods because they're ashamed to put it in there? And that's not what we want to be able to do. We want to be able to accept everything we do, right? But we can't do that when there's prejudgment. So I'll make another video about that one. But the next one we have to get to, this one's a tough one also. Habit 7, limit alcohol or cut it out completely. To be honest, I have never worked with someone who drinks regularly and loses fat consistently. Alcohol, unfortunately, disrupts REM sleep, which then decreases insulin sensitivity, so you can't burn off those carbs as well. And it also raises cortisol the next day, which promotes fat storage. It is not just about the additional calorie intake. This effect is truly amplified in women over 40. It also hijacks dopamine pathways, which then decreases the motivation to exercise, and the brain then seeks quick dopamine, which then increases appetite, and you convince yourself then that you just can't stop snacking. But here's what most women also don't know. Alcohol suppresses testosterone, and women need testosterone to build muscle. Testosterone supports muscle maintenance. It also increases fat metabolism. Testosterone also increases motivation to go to the gym. We don't want to suppress that. It improves nervous system resilience, the ability to go with it. Okay, alcohol interferes with this hormone signaling and this muscle protein synthesis. And when alcohol is present, the body prioritizes detoxing alcohol, not fat loss. Try taking a break for now, but pay attention that you aren't adding compensatory calories back in. My favorite form would be Mike and Ike's, to be honest. Those are my favorite compensatory calories. So none of these habits are extreme, and they are commonly known, but I hope that I provided a new value for you to commit to them. So you don't need to do all of them at once. Start with protein and fiber at first. Start with that one, and then move on to the others. When the nervous system feels safe, the body then changes easily. This is so important. And if you've tried habits like these and they still didn't work for you, that does not mean that you are failing. It probably honestly means that your body needed a different starting point. Watch this next video where I break down using a real client case study on a different way to approach fat loss.